All right, so good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us for the Education USA Undergraduate Virtual Fair. So this session is titled College Search, Finding the Best Fit. And in this session, we'll be discussing the various factors that you would need to consider when selecting colleges and universities that meet your requirements and would be the ideal fit for you. Before we begin the session, I want to share some quick housekeeping rules with you so that we are all on the same page. If you happen to experience any technical glitches during the session, please do bear with us and stay online until we try our best to sort things out from our end. And during the question and answer session, please make sure that your questions are topic relevant and it's relevant to the presentation. You can type all your questions in the chat box and we will get to it right at the end. If you experience any technical glitches on your end, or if you are unable to stay for the entire duration of the presentation, don't worry, the presentation is being recorded, so you'll be able to access the link to the recording in the seminars section, and this is the same section that you used to access this particular session. So that's it for housekeeping. Let's proceed with the session. And before I introduce our panelists, I want to tell you very quickly a little bit about Education USA so that you understand a little bit more about who we are and what we do. So Education USA is a US Department of State supported network of over 425 international advising centers in more than 175 different countries and territories. So as you know, we are your officials on US higher education. And as Education USA advisors, our role is to provide current, accurate, and comprehensive information about the entire US university selection process. So pretty much from the day you start selecting universities up until the day you pack your bag and leave the country, we're there to guide you through all these stages. If you want to obtain more information about our services, you can follow us on the Education USA website. That's www.educationusa.state.gov. Once again, that's www.educationusa.state.gov. We also have a number of Education USA country booths at the fair today. So if you have any questions for us, we have a lot of useful resources for students. And we'll advise you to drop by your country's Education USA booth and have a chat with the advisors there. So all 6 country booths will be located in the main lobby. Now to give you a quick overview of what we have to offer today at the fairs. Well, we have over 150 US institutions present here today. So those are a lot of university representatives, and we encourage you to go and chat with these representatives and obtain information about your higher studies. If you don't really know what kind of questions to ask the university representatives, or if you're having trouble figuring out how to navigate the platform, then feel free to visit the Education USA help desk. We have a handout there with specific questions on what kind of questions to ask university representatives. So I encourage you to download that handout and go through it, because it will really help you make the most of this experience. We also have representatives present from test organizations. We have representatives from College Board for the SATs, and we also have representatives from ETS and the British Council. So if you have any specific questions regarding the SAT exam or the TOEFL or the IELTS exam, please feel free to visit the booths for the test organizations. These booths will also be located in the main fair lobby area. And as I mentioned before, the 6 Education USA country booths will also be there in the lobby. We have 6 country booths for Afghanistan, Bangladesh, India, Nepal, Pakistan, and Sri Lanka. So if you have any country-specific questions, please feel free to drop by and have a chat with our trained advisors. We have a lot of resources to share with students, and if you just need help navigating the platform, or if you have any specific questions about the admissions process, we are all there and happy to help you. We will also be having country-specific webinars with the consular section and the US embassies. Each country will have a country-specific visa seminar. So if you are interested in attending these sessions, it will happen tomorrow. So that's the 10th of October from 5:30 p.m. to 6:15 p.m. Indian Standard Time. So if you want information about visa regulations for your specific country, please feel free to reach out to these country booths. Afghanistan, Bangladesh, India, Nepal, and Pakistan will all be having separate visa seminars. Sri Lanka will not be having a visa seminar, but a representative from the consular section of the US Embassy will be available from 5:30 p.m. to 6:15 p.m. IST to answer all your questions about the visa process. If you are attending this fair from other countries, please make sure you calculate the timing accordingly so that you get the time right for your time zone. So yeah, this is just a very quick overview of the platform and what we have to offer. And with that, I'm going to go into introducing our presenters this evening. We have Dr. Jing Luan. He's the Provost of International Education at San Mateo Colleges of Silicon Valley. And Dr. Jing is also the President of the American International Recruitment Council. Next, we have Pranav Pradhan. And Pranav is the Director of International Admissions at the University of San Francisco. We also have Dipali Shah. And Dipali is the Assistant Director of International Student Recruitment at Foothill and Dianza Colleges. And we also have Phai Thai. And Phai is the Associate Director of International Student Recruitment at Wichita State University. So that's it from me for now. Without any further ado, I'm going to hand it over to our presenters to take it from here. Over to you.
Thank you, Natasha. I'll share the screen and run the presentation, and we'll begin with Dr. Jing. So just give me a moment to share my screen. Natasha, can you stop share of your screen so that I can start my, thank you. Thank you. All right, we're ready. Over to you, Dr. Jing.
Unmute myself. There we go. Hello again. Good morning from California. As Natasha introduced me, I am Provost of San Mateo College of Silicon Valley. And there I am. And I am with a very handsome and beautiful folk here today on the panel. I'm very experienced. I am really delighted. It's such a great honor. Always enjoy opportunities also to talk to students and parents through Education USA. I have 3 transfer colleges, just a little bit about myself, which are 2-year community colleges that we wanted you to know about them. We're have about 1,000 of those colleges in California and the United States, a total, about 110. 10% of the community colleges are in California. We're known for having my 3 colleges are known for having the largest number of American universities legally recognizing courses offered at my college. We're the number 1 in terms of recent ranking among all California community colleges. In response to COVID-19, we offer now global online classes called GOL. We also call them online now, on campus later. So students can earn credits at much cheaper cost. They are better prepared for entering American universities, and they can use these credits to demonstrate true intent during their visa interviews. as some of you know, that the visa officers tend to ask, what is your intent? What is your financial support? So taking classes abroad from us have a lot more benefits, particularly for certain areas where a visa may be an issue. So we're very proud of the global online students we have right now who are taking over 600 credit hours right now. So I'm looking at my first slide. So today's presentation is very important. We have great speakers that are with me today. They have immense experience and passion. We will do our best to give you some eye-opening data, such as what is shown on the table. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I wanted to say that, to tell you that in addition to what is shown on the slide, it's our estimate that the 8 Ivy League universities admit no more than 200 Indian students a year. So what is your plan if you don't get selected? Do you know that for every international student admitted to UC Berkeley admits 4 to 5 transfer students from community colleges in the United States. 95% of them actually come out of California. Filio Dienza colleges, my colleges, are some of the largest contributors to UC Berkeley's transfer admission. So we'll help you get some fundamental knowledge about how to search for a college that best meets your realistic capabilities and goals and resources that you may need to help you in your journey for the best school. Next slide, please. Speaking of which, if you look at the slides, if we ask students in Asia about their goals of studying abroad, they would often name the largest goal possible, such as MIT, Harvard, UC Berkeley, Stanford, etc. However, as you would learn today, studying abroad is indeed a journey, and you must start with a very solid step, which is your realistic understanding of your college university readiness. Say students want to study at MIT. What is the model at MIT? I'll often ask students, what is mind and hand? Latin translated into English. That is the MIT model. You should know that. What is on the Harvard University's coat of arms? If you don't know Veritas and you have demonstrated that you're not really prepared if you want to go to those top-notch universities. Now look at the college readiness. Again, ask yourself, what is my English level right now? If it is less than 70, then you may not be ready to be considered for Harvard, UC Berkeley, and other top university. But if you're over 109.10, great. Well, let's move on to your next level, your finance. And think about your GPA. So these elements are really the elements used by American universities as comprehensive review. So you have to go through them to be very, very clear on your actual results of your college readiness assessment in order to connect those results to your ultimate goal. Now, Dipali and others may tell you that the element or the items you must satisfy to go to a community college would be a lot less. And once you are inside the United States studying on a community college campus, your journey really starts. Third slide, next slide, please. So this leads me to remind everyone that there are really 2 routes you can take to enter the US for your undergraduate studies. University freshman admissions, UFA, and university transfer admissions, UTA. Either way, your journey really starts once you are in the US, like I said just a second ago, because once you are here, you will know the US education system much better. You will know what you really like to accomplish. You will start looking for the opportunities for your second step in your higher education learning. And what is second step? That's what we're going to be talking to you about. The step is about you jump from the community college to a university transfer. That's the step. Or when you obtain your BA from a regular university, then you jump to a Ivy League university. I've seen many times this has been happening. So to start your journey of higher education by coming into a community college may indeed be extremely helpful and wise for you. And my other distinguished panelists will explain to you what additional benefits there are and the ways to accomplish that. So thank you very much for your attention. I will turn it over to my distinguished panelists.
Thank you. Dipali, can you please go on to the next slide? Perfect. Thank you so much, Jing. All right. So today we're going to talk a little bit about how to choose the right institution. So, when we were just, waiting, actually, I'm sorry, I'll first quickly introduce myself. My name is Pranav Pradhan. I'm the Director of International Admissions at the University of San Francisco. Okay. I'm not going to talk a lot about USF. We have a booth at the fair. Feel free to come and talk to me about there and ask me institution specific information. Here, right now, we're going to talk a little bit about choosing the best fit institution, how to find that best fit. So while I was waiting for my turn to speak, I was looking at some of the questions right there in the chat box. Okay, that's when I noticed that there were some questions which were like, which is the best college for engineering? Which is the best college for law? Where should I? So there are a lot of these questions which were coming, which were asking for the best institution. Now remember that the whole point about the best fit and the choosing the right institution concept is that you need to think about what is the best fit for you, right? The concept of best fit is that there is a right institution for you and you need to find that. Lots of times, students tend to go with rankings. Now, rankings is definitely not the best way to start your process, right? And if not rankings, then how do you go about this? How do you really shortlist universities? In the United States, there are over 4,700 universities, right? It's practically impossible for you to just look at each and every school, right? So you probably want to shortlist this and bring the list down to maybe 6 or 8 universities that you may end up applying, right? So how you go from 4,700 all the way down to maybe 6 or 8, right? That is where, it's very important for you to think about what is that you are looking for, right? So the concept of defining your own priorities, that means, are you somebody who is looking at a college which has a large classroom of 200 300 students, or do you want more of a personalized experience of a smaller classroom? Are you somebody who is looking at being in a big city versus you somebody who's being in a small city? Factors like program, location, cost, a lot of these factors, and these are just 3 factors that I talked about, but there could be athletics, there could be stuff like research, there could be stuff like what sort of student organizations are existing. So there could be hundreds and hundreds of different factors that you can use to shortlist these universities. But what is important to you is you need to take a step back and think about what factors are important to you, right? Is location important? Is program important? Is cost important? Is athletics important? So first do that exercise, and this exercise is also going to be extremely helpful when you start writing that college essay, right? When you know that these are the factors that matter to you, this is what you're looking at in the institution, you are ready to go, right? So before you jump and go on to maybe a Google search or some kind of search engine. So when we were preparing this presentation, I shared that one of the useful resources is Big Future College Board website. Again, remember, these are third-party websites. They may not necessarily have correct information about all institutions, but you can, this could be a great start instead of using a ranking list. Okay, so using like a Big Future College Board or a petersons.com, these search engines are great when you want to kind of filter universities based on factors like cost, size of the institution, class size, whether it is public or private. So start with maybe a Big Future, maybe petersons.com, but remember that they might not have updated information, right? So for example, we were just talking and I think Jing pointed out that the cost was not properly updated. So when you come across a university that you like on the search engine, the next step for you would be to go on the university's website, over there, look for specific details and make sure, because there is no third party website that will be as accurate as the institutional website. So for any kind of institutional information, like whether it is about application, whether it is about scholarships, whether it is about anything changes due to COVID, whatever it is, the most authentic and the perfect information is something that you will find on the institutional website. These third-party websites can be a little bit of earlier stage ones, but once you shortlist those universities, or once you kind of pick on those names, go on the institutional websites, right? Also, one very important step for you right now is creating a timeline, because it's very important for you to organize this process for yourself, right? When should I start applying? When should I take the SAT exam? When should I take the TOEFL exam? Do I need an SAT exam? So there are so many questions that are going to pop up as you start thinking about applying to the United States, that it's the best thing would be to first create a timeline. Now, if you go on the Education USA's website, even if you attend some of the Education USA sessions that are happening today, you will come across the Education USA's 5-step process. And I think that's a fantastic way to kind of put a timeline to your own process. Typically, what Education USA would recommend is 18 to 24 months in advance of your admission is when you need to start searching for universities, right? So start looking for universities when you're in grade 12. So let's say if you are in grade 11, and when you are in grade 12, you should be ready to apply for institutions. I mean, some deadlines can be as early as 1st of November, and then some of them are rolling deadlines and you can go all the way, right? So that's a little bit about this. Dipali, can you please go on to the next slide? Thank you. So the thing is that after we have kind of looked at a few factors, these are some factors that I'm going to talk about. Number one is accreditation, right? Instead of looking at rankings, accreditation is a factor that you should be looking at closely, right? There are typically two types of accreditation. Actually, there are more, but if you kind of classify, there is national accreditation and regional accreditation. National is like the whole United States. Region, the United States is kind of, bifurcated or divided further into 6 different regions, like Northeast, there is a Pacific, West Coast, and those kind of things, right? So a regional accreditation typically is a stronger accreditation. So as long as the institution that you're looking for is regionally accredited, you're going to be fine, right? Accreditation is like there are official bodies that kind of make sure the university or the institution that you are looking for is maintaining certain standards, right? So quite honestly, comparing ranking and accreditation is like comparing apples and oranges. They don't have anything in common necessarily. So what you really need to look at is, the program, whether the program is accredited, whether the School of Management accredited, whether the university is overall accredited from a regional body. So these things is something that you should look at. Typically, most of the big names that you come across are usually, very well accredited. But if you come across a new institution that you don't know about, don't discard it unless and until you actually look at their accreditation information. Okay, cost of education. This plays a very important role in the application process. Okay, in the United States, there are universities which are $20,000-$25,000 a year, and some are $80,000-$90,000 a year, right? So you really need to think about the cost of. But before you go out there and figure out what is the cost, you should also think about how much you are ready to spend, right? So kind of having a conversation with your parents, with your sponsors is very important, and figuring that cost of attendance factor in the beginning will definitely be helpful. Don't just look at tuition fees. Beyond tuition fee, there is going to be housing, there is going to be meal plans, there's going to be insurance, there's going to be money that you spend on a weekend for a pizza and a movie. So just think about all these expenses and calculate them properly, right? Because these are expenses that you'll have, and having this kind of planning in advance will definitely help you, find that right institution. I'm very quickly going to talk about scholarship because I don't want to take too much time. So there are 2 types of scholarships, primarily merit-based and need-based. Most of the international students are primarily looking at merit-based institutions, merit-based scholarships. There are some need-based scholarships available for international students as well, but again, very few. Majority of the US universities are need aware for international students. That means they can admit you only if you can afford them. Unfortunately, that's the truth, right? So that's why majority of international students are actually aiming for merit-based scholarships. Now, as the word merit goes, the scholarship is based on some sort of merit. Typically, that could be your grades in high school, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th, your performance on the SAT if the school is looking at that. So these factors kind of go together, and that's what goes towards scholarship calculations. And there are other scholarships like, athletic ones. There are scholarships for maybe a special talent. There could be a separate application for scholarships. There are honors college scholarships. So there are a lot of different things. Remember, in this process, you need to do a lot of research. Okay, do not go blindly on rankings or just something that you heard about. During this process, you're going to have to ask a lot of questions to university representatives, to Education USA, to friends, to family. But one very important advice in asking question is always ask questions that are factual instead of asking opinion-based questions. So for example, when you are asking somebody, how is this university? That's an open-ended question. Instead, you might want to ask questions like, how many international students do you have? What is the scholarship amount like? How many international students get scholarship? So the questions need to be pinpointed. They need to be fact-oriented and not opinion. If you ask like, hey, what do you think about this university? I mean, you can really get a very long answer about that, and it might not take you anywhere, right? So don't ask for opinions, ask for facts. Okay, I think that's a little bit about shortlisting. Dipali, over to the next slide, please.
Hi, Pranav.
Okay.
You have 2 minutes left. Just wanted to let you know.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Pranav. I'll take on from here. Hello, everyone. My name is Dipali Shah. I'm the Assistant Director of International Student Recruitment with Futil and De Anza colleges. You can visit my booth and I can share more information about Futil and De Anza colleges. And Jing already said, has already explained about community colleges. So I'll just give you a short background. Futil and De Anza are two community colleges. We are in the Silicon Valley near San Francisco in California. We provide associate's degrees as well as transfer programs with universities in the US at the undergrad level, because community colleges are 2-year institutions. So after doing your first 2 years of undergrad studies with us, you can transfer to a university to complete your bachelor's degree requirements of the last 2 years and get your degree from the transfer university. Having said that, which universities have our students transferred to, our rankings, and you can ask me all of that at my booth. I'm now going to talk to you about the types of institutions in the US education system, because most of us have heard about 4-year, public universities, private universities. We haven't heard and explored a lot about community colleges. We've not really understood and explored sometimes about liberal arts universities, specialized universities. What are they and do they exist? Well, yes, they do. USA is known for choices. With more than 4,500 accredited institutions for higher education in the US, you have a huge choice, you have a huge variety to choose from. And I always tell students, the rule of one rule fits for all does not apply to US universities, because every university has its own requirements for admissions. They have different scholarship opportunities. Different program curriculum. So it's important for you to explore. The word that you need to really keep in mind is explore. Look beyond the normal and find out what are those right fit institutions for you. Let's begin by talking about public and private universities. Now, public universities are typically 4-year institutions. They are funded by the state majorly where they're located. And that's why sometimes they have the word state in their name, sometimes, okay? So, it is often said, and students often come and speak with me and ask me, is it true that public universities are very affordable? Well, because they're funded by the state where they're located, they could be affordable universities. But then, you also have University of California, Los Angeles, University of California, Berkeley. These are public institutions. So sometimes public universities could have their tuition comparable to private ones. So the question for you to ask is, what is your annual tuition and what is your annual cost of attendance for international? So public universities are usually huge in size, and they focus a lot on research. They have different programs that they offer, and That's the main thing about them. Now you also have private universities in the US. Private universities are again not funded by the state primarily where they're located, but they are funded by the alumni maybe, or private endowments, company research projects, etc. So sometimes students feel that private universities are very expensive. Well, they also offer a lot of scholarships to students, which can bring your costs down. So it is not right to say that public universities are definitely more affordable than private. There could be some public universities as expensive as some private ones, and there could be some mid-sized private universities that could be as affordable as some of the public universities. So for you, you've got to go on their website, do a little research on their costs so that you know the actual costs and do real comparisons to get clarity. All right, we all know Stanford and Harvard and MIT, these are all private universities, right? So every university has its own requirements, and I think it is best for you to use this platform of Education USA. You have Pranav here, University of San Francisco, private university. You have Fai here, Wichita State Public University. So explore, go talk to them, ask them what scholarships do they offer, how big are they, and ask real questions. For Jane and I, we are community colleges. So the next topic of discussion is community colleges. So community colleges are public non-profit institutions in the US. They are two-year institutions that offer transfer programs with universities at the undergrad level, the bachelor's level. Okay, having said this, they also offer an associate degree, which is a degree between your high school and bachelor's degree. Now, this extra degree can give you 1 year of extra OPT to work before you decide to transfer to a 4-year university to complete the last 2 years. So literally, there are two ways in which you can do your undergrad education from the US. You can either begin at a community college, do the first and second year of your bachelor's degree program at the community college, and then in the third year, transfer to a university to complete your last 2 years, and the university that you transfer to will give you your bachelor's degree. So it's still the same degree, it's still 4 years, it's just that community colleges offer 2+2 transfer programs. Now, there are nearly 1,200 community colleges in the US in different states of USA. You have community colleges in California and Seattle and different states of USA. The one thing about community colleges in California, the Californian community college system is actually the largest public education system of USA. So, students often ask me this question about community colleges that, can I succeed by doing my first 2 years of undergrad studies at a community college? The answer is yes. Do you know Barack Obama was a student of a community college? Now, let me give you an example of Futil and De Anza. Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak, co-founders of Apple, were students with us. Steve Wozniak studied 2 years at De Anza, transferred to UC Berkeley. He's the co-founder of Apple. Jenny D. Block, Chancellor of UCLA, studied 2 years at Futil, transferred to Stanford. So you can succeed by beginning your undergrad studies at a community college and then transferring, and you can equally succeed by beginning your undergrad studies at public and private universities. It just depends what your requirements are and what your right fit is. Another thing about community colleges that students ask me is, why should I begin at a community college if I have to transfer to ultimately complete my last 2 years at a university and they give me the bachelor's degree? Well, community colleges are known for affordability. So by doing the first 2 years of undergrad studies at a community college, you can save on a lot of cost, okay, because they're very affordable in terms of tuition. And they're also known for smaller classes, a lot of personalized attention where you get student success centers and support. Like at Futil De Anza, we have the Student Success Center where you can sit and work on your weak areas with professors and tutors. So different community colleges have these opportunities. Go speak with them, and so do public and private universities. All of us have student support, so you must talk to us to get the right information. Moving on to the next type of universities, really well known are liberal arts universities. What are liberal arts universities? Well, liberal arts universities offer education in the liberal arts and sciences. So the word liberal in itself means wider, right? So you get a wider choice to make when you do your education. So you can do some courses in humanities, social sciences, the pure sciences, mathematics. It just gives you a wider perspective of things, and they specialize in liberal arts, and sciences programs. They're usually private, but there could be some public, but most of them are private, and they're known for smaller classes and more professor interactions. Having said this, a lot of universities in the US, public and private, even if they're not liberal arts and science universities specifically, do offer liberal arts and science programs. So again, the point that I'm making again and again over here is community colleges are known for affordability, but there could be affordable opportunities even at public and private universities. What if you bag a big scholarship? What if you look at a mid-sized university that's a little more affordable? So please speak with universities, because there are exceptions and every university has its own requirements and offerings to make. And then, a few liberal arts universities, if you'd like to get like a few examples, you have the Williams College. Most of you must have heard of it. You have the Amherst College. So these are really well-known liberal arts and science colleges in the US. And then, we also have specialized universities in the US, again, known for choices, right? US is known for choices. So like you have music conservatories for somebody who only wants to study music and focus on that. You have the Berklee College of Music, you have, Juilliard College. There are technology-specific institutions like Massachusetts Institute of Technology. You have, then you have Florida Institute of Technology, California Institute of Technology. There's so many options. You also have art and design schools for somebody who wants to only focus on art and design. Like, you have the Rhode Island Institute of Design, you have the Parsons School of Design, design at the New School, you have Savannah College of Art and Design, and some of them are at the fair. So go speak with them and understand what are their differences in the way they offer their programs. So you will get clarity. Again, this does not mean that you cannot study it at another university. And lastly, I'm going to talk to you about the education system in the US. So,
Dipali,
yes.
Sorry to interrupt. You have about 2 minutes more.
Sure.
Just want to let you.
Yes, so you can study undergrad programs, associate degrees, you can study PhD in the US. Your programs have credit hours. Now, credits are units which you do in classrooms. So for example, a bachelor's degree is 120 to 130 credits. It has, general education classes, major classes and electives. General education classes means irrespective whether you want to study management or computer science, you're going to be doing classes from humanities, social sciences, behavioral sciences, physical sciences. So you can do it at a university or community college. And then you also have wide variety of programs that they offer. For example, students ask about science, technology, engineering, math. Well, these are offered, but do you know there are some programs like economics and entrepreneurship, which can be STEM programs, like USF, University of San Francisco. Pranav was chatting with me. His economics and entrepreneurship programs fall under STEM. So you have opportunities, you have options, explore, and you can even do a double major and a major minor. So you can study psychology with music, or you can study computer science with business. We have everything to offer to you as long as you're ready to explore. So with this, I'll transit to my colleague now.
Holly. So this is Fai Tai with Wichita State University. I'm the only school that is not in the coast. So I'm right in the middle of the US in the state of Kansas. And I'm going to talk with you about application process and admission process. Now, Pranav already talked about how early should you start with your college search process. I'm going to talk about how early should you apply. Usually you can apply in your last year of high school. So that means you can start in your first semester of your last year, grade 12. That's usually considered a good time. And because you still have time to prepare other documents, your transcript. But then how late? Some schools, they take late applications. That's about 3 or 4 months before school starts. So let's say if school starts in August, you can possibly apply as late as April. So that gives you a timeline. And then about documents that you required. Many students thought about SAT. Do you require SAT to apply to US school? Not necessarily. Some schools require, some don't. So if you don't have SAT, that's not a problem. There are many schools in the US do not require SAT. And then personal statement, it is the same. There are schools in the US that do not require you to submit an essay, but for those that require an essay, please take it very seriously. Do not use any templates. Be creative. You're not writing a report. So make it an essay to shine yourself, talk about your uniqueness. You have to sell yourself to the university to accept you. What is most important though is your official transcript. So for example, your board exam results, that's a must for you to apply to a school in the US. Financial documents usually include bank statement, or if you have any kind of time deposit certificate, that will be also important when you apply. Then English proficiency. TOEFL and IELTS are very commonly accepted English tests. Nowadays, because of COVID, many schools also accept Duolingo, and it's also a lower cost test. So you might want to explore it and see if the school that you want to apply accepts it. Polly, would you move on to the next slide, please? Now, we know that in your country, in India, in Nepal, in Sri Lanka, there are a lot of agents. Actually, not all US schools work with agents, so you need to know about this. Only about half or less than half of the higher education, higher ed institutions in the US accepts agents. So when you start working with an agent, make sure that the school that you work with works with an agent. That means if a school doesn't work with an agent, they do not expect an agent apply for you. You have to apply for yourself. Do everything yourself. Your agent may help you along the way, but you have to do everything by yourself. And when you're looking for an agent, it's kind of like looking for a university. You have all these choices. How do you find a legitimate agent, a credible agent? So here you see an icon, a badge. Says American Institutional Recruitment Council, AIRC. It is a council that is endorsed by U.S. Department of State. So they certify legitimate, good agents. If you're looking for an agent, look for this badge, and those are the agents that you can work with. Those are trustworthy agents. And when you're working with agents, we know that they charge you a fee. But if an agent tells you that I charge you this fee and I can assure you, I can guarantee you, you can go into Harvard, don't work with this agent. So make sure that you know what you're paying for and everything you, it's clear. So it goes to my last point about agencies, transparency of process. When you're working with an agent to apply to a school, you need to know everything that you need to be involved in all the communication between the school. So, and yourself, do not just let the agent do everything and you just step aside not to do anything. You have to be involved, regardless of whether the university works with the agent or not. So that's very important. Please, next slide. Now, this is the very important topic I want to talk about, which is about your work status. How, if you're allowed to work earlier. So the folks talk about OPT, CPT. As soon as you arrive the US, you can start looking for jobs. As an international student, you are allowed to work 20 hours a week when school is in session. But during the holidays, for example, in summer, in Christmas, if the university is still open, you can work more than 20 hours a week. That is no problem. And then after you attended a university for one academic year, you can start looking for a job that is outside of the campus. But you need to apply for a permit that is called Curricular Practical Training, CPT. And the limitation is that the job must be related to your major. And ours is the same. You are only allowed to work 20 hours a week. And then after you graduate, for example, you graduate from a community college with an associate degree, you can apply for OPT, optional practical training. For all majors, you are eligible for applying 1 year of OPT. But if you're a STEM major, after the 1 year, you can apply for an extension of 2 years, so a total of 3 years. That means when you apply for a program, you want to see and ask the university if that program is a STEM program. Some programs may not sound like a STEM major, for example, supply chain management. In some schools, it can be a STEM major. In some schools, it may not. So make sure you know about your program, your major, whether it is STEM or not. So last slide, please. The next slide is a wrap up of our presentation today, finding the best fit. The major thing that you need to know and ask yourself when you start your college search is, what is your goal? Do you just want to earn a degree? You want to earn a bachelor degree, master's degree, and PhD so that you can go back to your country and find a nice job? Or do you also want to earn work experience when you're studying in the US? Or do you want to experience the culture over here? You want to improve your language. You want to expand your exposure. Or you don't have a goal. You don't know what your goal is. So you want to go to the US and find your goal, which is not a problem at all. Because the beauty and the nice thing about US education is this flexibility. Every one of our folks talked about it. And also opportunity. If you think that your grade is not the best, you don't have 100, you don't score 100 in TOEFL, so you can't get into Harvard or Stanford right away, that's no problem. You can start with a community college, and then later on you can you get good grades, you can transfer to a 4-year university, and then end up, you may go to Harvard for your master's and PhD. So that's all about opportunity in the US. Or you start with a program that you thought you like. You want to start with aerospace engineering, which is the most popular major in my university. And then you find that, wow, it's so hard to study aerospace. Now I'm gonna do entrepreneurship. I want to do business. That is no problem. In the US, you can change major. So that's all about flexibility and opportunities. So you need to know yourself, and like Dr. Jing talked about earlier, have a self-assessment about yourself so you know what your strengths and your weaknesses are, and that helps you to find the best fit. The last point, knowns and unknowns. When you do your research, you are trying to find a lot of things that you have a list in your mind, but there are a lot, you never know what you don't know. So always ask and explore. You will find out that there are things that you never thought about, but they are important in your college search. So that is my last point to talk about in this seminar. And if you have any more questions, feel free to come and find any one of us. And I'm Fai Tai with Wichita State University. I'm in Hall 2, second row, very far in on the right. So feel free to come and talk with me or any other presenters in this panel. Thank you so much. If you have any questions, it's time for you to ask.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Jing, Dipali, Pranav, and Fai for that wonderful presentation. It was really informative and covered a lot of really useful information. So before we open it up for questions, I'm just going to take a second to share my screen. Dipali, if you don't mind stopping your screen share. Thank you. All right, so we're going to open it up for questions. Yeah, I see a lot of questions pouring in right now from our students, but I just want to let you know that we won't be able to answer all your questions because we're kind of pressed for time. We'll take some of the topic specific questions or the relevant questions, and we'll try our best to answer as many questions as we possibly can. I also noticed that most of you are asking a lot of really program specific questions. And rather than asking the questions here, I think it would be really useful if you guys visit the fair that's happening right now. We have over 150 university representatives present, guys. So they're ready to answer your questions, and we would encourage you now to go and have a chat with them and ask them any questions that you have that are program specific. They will be here only today and tomorrow, and after that you won't be able to meet them as frequently as you can today and tomorrow. So I'd encourage you to please make use of that option and go and have a chat with the representatives for program specific questions. All right, so with that being said, I'm just going to take a look at some of the questions. It's not addressed to anyone in particular, so any of our panelists, please feel free to answer this question. Can we transfer to any university within the United States?
If you're talking from a community college perspective, yes, as long as you meet transfer requirements in the first 2 years, you can. For example, let me give you an example of Foothills and De Anza. So we're ranked number 1 for transfers to the University of California campuses. Most of our students like to transfer to UCLA, UC Berkeley, UC San Diego, the California State Universities. But we also have students transferring to Ohio State, Purdue, New York University, Boston. We had a student who transferred on a fully funded mechanical engineering program to MIT. So if you're coming from a community college and you want to transfer, you can, as long as you meet requirements of transfer. So the requirements of transferring to Stanford or MIT would be different from some other universities. And now let's say you went to a university and you've not, and for some reasons you want to transfer from that university to another. It's possible. It just depends again on how you've performed and what courses, whether you took general education classes, major classes, whether they're transferable. But if your aim is to transfer, yeah, the right path is community college and then transfer, if that was the question.
Right. Thank you very much, Deepali. We have another question. Can a non-science student study computer science in the US?
Sure. Hello, can you hear me?
Hello, yes, Pranav, we can hear you.
Hi, absolutely. If a student is from a non-science background, a lot of universities, yes, they will accept you for computer science. Something that Dr. Jing pointed out right in the beginning was about college readiness. So for example, let's say if you're thinking about going and studying computer science and you come from a commerce or a business background, you have to think about, what kind of classes that you'll be doing. There are a lot of universities that will let you, they'll accept you in that program. Just think about the type of subjects that you'll study. Are you prepared for those kind of subjects? And if you feel that you're not ready, if let's say, like for example, USF, we accept a student from a commerce background into a computer science program, right? But if you are looking at some other university that does not, you can always transition through a community college as well. But usually in the United States, it is possible.
Thank you, Pranav. Okay, let's see what other questions. Is SAT compulsory for admission to US universities?
Well,
Yeah,
I talked about it earlier in the slide. No, SAT is not compulsory to all universities in the US. Actually, for example, my university, we don't require, it's optional. In some universities, they take SAT as a standard to award scholarships. We can accept it if you have an SAT, but it's really not required. I don't know if Pranav or like Jing or Deepali, if your school require SAT, or it's just optional.
If I may add, SAT is being gradually phased out at a number of universities, and then you notice that trend picked up during the COVID-19 era. As a matter of fact, SAT is, I'm just going to quote my colleagues from Harvard and UC Berkeley, that it's a test developed by Americans, primarily still for Americans. So there's a significant amount of cultural bias, so that students who are attempting to take the test, if you measure it by the second, you're going to have a slight delay, and that is going to cost you dearly. And then if you're trying to take the test from a foreign nation, that you're limited in terms of time and resources. So in my personal opinion, it's very good for you not to consider those universities that are requiring SAT. If you are doing your self-assessment, you realize that you are at a disadvantage. So Wichita and USF may even be indeed the ideal places for you to start your journey, and then you move on from there. And I can tell you from my personal experience, many of our students transfer to USF and other places, and Wichita State is a great place because it's in the middle part of the United States. The SAT and ACT may not be your criteria for selection exclusively.
thank you.
Natasha, I would just quickly like to add a little bit about the test optional, because there seems to be a lot of confusion about the terminology that is being used this year specifically. So thank you about clarifying the test optional policies. Yes, this year particularly, majority of the universities are going to be test optional, or but the word test optional is different. Like there are some universities that call themselves test optional, some are test flexible, some are test blind. All of these things are different, like have different meaning, right? So University of San Francisco, fall 20 was the first time we went test optional, and we're going to be continuing the test optional policy going forward. Now, test optional does not mean test not required. If you have taken the SAT, if you have done well, submit it, right? So whenever you hear the word test optional, remember, if your SAT score is the best representation of your academic strength, submit it, right? It may support your application. But let's say you are an IB student with a 39 on 42 and your SAT score is 1100. That's probably not the right match, and it might do more harm than it might help. So when you come across a situation where your SAT score is not the best or representation of your academic strength, and if the university is giving you an option to not submit it, by all means go ahead. Remember, again, each and every university has its own policy. In some cases, they might be test optional for admission, but not test optional for scholarship. In some cases, the university might be test flexible. That means they will decide whether they will consider a score or not. And in a lot of cases, universities are going to be test blind. Test blind means even if you submit a score of 1600 on 1600, they are not going to look at it, right? So please refer to these terminologies carefully and make sure you understand these policies. Each and every university is going to have a different policy, right? And in some cases, once you submit your common application, they may not even let you change, what you have entered. So for example, if you in the common app, you entered the fact that please consider my SAT, and later on you say, I don't have an SAT score. Some colleges cannot change that once you have submitted the application. So again, I know it sounds a little intimidating, but unfortunately that's the way we go.
All right, thank you very much, Pranav, for explaining that. So it's 7:28. We have just around 2 minutes. I have one more question, one last question. Do AP exams guarantee scholarships and admission? That's our last question.
Okay.
I think I've heard a lot about APs, advanced placement tests, and I'll just give you an introduction to that. And then, I know that if you've done APs and if you've done well, you can get credit waivers. So your credits can be transferred. And I know Pranav always speaks about this classic example that if you've done well on some APs, you can complete your undergrad program at his university. I'm sure Wichita State also must be having great policies for advanced placement transfers, and you must speak with us. So it's going to be an advantage if you take advanced placement tests, and if the university that you're looking for will accept it for credit transfer. So you will complete your program faster, you'll save on cost, and that's good. That way it will be easier for you to approach your undergrad program. That's it.
Thank you. Thanks, Deepali. Right. I just want to point something out. I see that a lot of students, at least a few of you, are asking questions about us picking universities for you, and you're asking us whether we can give you a set of universities that you can apply to. Unfortunately, this is not something that we can do because that choice is entirely yours. I know our presenters mentioned this today during the presentation, but that choice really depends on you, simply because the program that works best for me and is an ideal fit for me won't necessarily be the right fit for you, and vice versa, right? So for that reason, it's not possible for us to select the universities for you. So our recommendation would be to sort of, step back a little bit, really introspect and think about what you want from the program. And that might help you get some clarity about selecting the right fit for you. That's the advice that we can give you. Sorry, yes, Deepali.
If I may add, and this is the perfect platform to do that. If you want to talk to Californian institutions, you can go and speak. There's so many.
Oh, I think we lost Deepali.
Right.
Then may I jump
Wichita
into
State and many other state universities.
May I jump into
Deepali.
Was I audible?
We lost you there for just a little bit.
Okay, so I was saying that there are so many options on the platform today. If a student is looking for art and design, you can go speak with Savannah College of Art and Design, Full Sail, and there are so many other. Understand their differences. Go speak to Wichita State, look at other state universities, and see what differences are they offering. There's San Mateo Colleges of Silicon Valley, there's Foothills de Anza, there's Shoreline Community College. There are great private universities like University of San Francisco. So understand what their scholarships are. This is the platform that will give you your list. Speak with us and you will get to know where you're supposed to go. So thank you, Education USA, for giving us this opportunity.
Thank you. Dr. Jing, I think you wanted to add something to that. Am I right?
Yes, very quickly. I think I can say as a rule, none of the community colleges in the United States requires SAT or ACT. To be honest with you, you can consider it as test blind in that case. And also, if you're thinking about AP and IB classes, and you have to remember, you can also take online classes from Foothills de Anza and my colleges and even Wichita and USF. Those actually are taught by American professors. So you'll gain the firsthand knowledge and experience with an American classroom. That will be super important and useful. I think we mentioned this earlier. So keep your mind open while you are looking for AP and IB, but you also can take online classes, and that speak to maybe graduate students or students already in the first year of university. You can also gain exposure to American classrooms for your graduate studies. So thank you. I want to add that. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you once again to our amazing team today for addressing all the questions and for that really informative session. Once again, everyone, before I wrap up, I want to let you know that we have 150 university representatives present today. So please make use of this opportunity. It doesn't come by often, so don't let it go to waste. Make the most of it. And if you have Education USA specific questions, and if you need help just selecting universities or finding financial aid or identifying the right fit for you, do stop by your country-specific Education USA booth, and we'll be happy to support you. That is it from us for now. We have another session starting at 7:45, so we need to sign out now. If you're interested, that session is going to be on financing your education in the US, and we encourage you to attend the session. If you're unable to attend most of the session, again, all the sessions will be recorded and all the recordings will be available in the seminar section. So don't worry too much about missing the content. You can always make up for it later. And with that being said, that is it from all of us. Thank you. I hope you had a productive session, and I hope you have a fruitful experience at the fair. Thank you very much.